Hess, and today I'm going to be speaking to you about the two main theories with regards to reading. These theories are bottom-up and top-down. The top-down approach to reading goes from the whole of the text to parts of the text. It goes from comprehensions to letters and sounds. The steps when using this approach are understand the written text, interpret the words and sentences and letters, and then word recognition. The top-down approach to reading is also known as the psycholinguistic approach, as well as the meaning-giving theory. It is known as the meaning-giving theory because this whole approach evolves around the fact that reading is therefore a meaning, for the readers to interpret meaning from it. This approach sees reading as a meaningful whole and not compromised of fragmented sub-skills. When using this approach, the learners have association with real books and authentic text, as this helps them discover the meaning of reading. Emphasis is placed on the learner's engagement of the text. Instead of the learners just being able to recognize the words within the text, they must be able to understand the meaning. Learners become active readers as they discover the meaning of the text and understand it. Example of using the top-down approach in an activity. When using the top-down approach, you would read the story first. Then you'd make sure your learners understand the story. Then you would interpret the words and then discover new vocabulary. So it goes from first making sure your learners understand the story to then only identifying the words which the learners do not understand to expand their vocab. The bottom-up approach to reading goes from parts of the text to the whole of the text. Therefore, it goes from letter sounds to comprehension. The steps for this approach are letter and word recognition, then only understanding the words, understand sentences, and then only at the end you'll read the actual story to the learners to make sure they understand the meaning of it. The bottom-up approach is also known as the behaviorist approach, as well as the skills acquirement theory. This approach sees reading as a complicated skill made of sub-skills. Reading is a combination of detached skills according to this approach. Therefore, the aim of this approach isn't to see the meaning of the text, but to identify the different aspects of it, such as the phonics and an emphasis on the sounds of the words, and to help the learners develop their vocabulary. An example of using the bottom-up approach to reading. So when using this for an activity, you could go over vocabulary first, which you know the learners won't understand that are in the text. Then you could speak about the theme which the text relates to, then only read the story and make sure the learners understand the story. When you have to compare the top-down and bottom-up approach, we can see that they are completely different. As the top-down approach, meaning is the most important part of reading. And for the bottom-up approach, the reader must master mechanical and technical aspects of reading before the comprehension. For the top-down approach, people continue to learn to read throughout their lives, where in the bottom-up approach, once you have mastered the mechanical and technical aspects, you are seen to be able to read. For the top-down approach, learning to read is seen as a holistic process, which learners' aims and expectations determine what they read. But for the bottom-up approach, reading readiness programs before the learner is actually allowed to read occur. Reading is comprehension-driven according to the top-down approach, but reading is text-driven according to the bottom-up approach. Then we have our balanced approach to reading, which is basically the top-down and bottom-up approach combined. The balanced approach to reading is not a reading theory. It is an orientation with respect to the reading and general literacy of teaching. It involves different reading and teaching methods depending on the learner's needs and progress. It is a decision-making approach, as the teacher has the right to make a decision on her teaching, as well as reflect on it and make decisions which will help make the learners better readers as well as writers. Reasons to use the balanced approach. It allows the teacher to differentiate learning, which also shows how important the balanced approach is, as the teacher is able to reflect on her teaching or his teaching every day after a lesson or activity. Therefore, they are able to see what each individual learner needs in order to improve their reading or writing. It integrates comprehension, writing, and phonetics activities. Therefore, it helps improve all aspects of the learner's literacy. It allows for room of improvement, which we are shown by when the teacher is able to reflect on their teaching and reflect on each individual learner's improvement, and to make sure that these learners are able to improve in different aspects and to see where the learners do need to improve. There's not one theory which is said to be better than the other. As a teacher, when you're wanting to choose the right reading theory to use when teaching reading, you must look at the text difficulty as well as your learners' capabilities in your classroom, as this is what your approach you use will depend on. Thank you for listening.